Hi, I'm Tony Sindelar, a learning designer working in higher education. In this video, I want to provide you with some advice on teaching with teams to set your students up for success. It's my belief that working in teams can be a really engaging and rewarding experience for learners, but almost everybody out there has a horror story, or two, or three, or more about a bad group project that they were assigned to work on. So it's my hope that the tips in this video will make collaborative work a more productive and enjoyable experience for your learners and probably for you as their teacher as well. So let's start off with some terminology. Some people use the terms groups and teams interchangeably, but there can be a significant distinction for these, especially in the literature around teaching with teams. In that literature, there's the idea that a team is more than just a group, which is a collection of people. A team is a collection of people that have roles, a shared purpose, and some kind of mission that they're trying to complete. Now, in your teaching, you might use both. You might have quick ad hoc groups. I think about your classic turn and talk or think, pair, share. Those are almost the tiniest form of group activities that don't require much in terms of planning or preparation. But if you're asking your students to take on tasks that are going to require more sustained collaboration between learners, that's where you're going to need more structure. So for quick activity, groups are fine. But when you're doing things where they're going to need to work together across class sessions, and especially on something that might have a grade attached to it, that's where you're going to need to think a lot more about how you organize those teams and set them up for success. An important first step is to think about what size teams do you want to work with here. You want to pick the size of your teams around the project or task or activity that you're giving them. If you give them a task that is too small or too big, that is not setting them up for success. I have some of my worst team experiences have been when a very large team was assigned a very small task, and basically the secret subtask was, how do we manage this ridiculous number of people that have been assigned this small task, because it was unwieldy. If you are doing things where you want students working in particularly large teams, maybe you're modeling things that they're going to have to do out in industry, you're going to need to provide those students with more structure, things like assigned roles and responsibilities, ways that they report out, and so on. A good number to think about is that a team bigger than 5 is going to get unwieldy fast. The next thing you might think about is, how long are you keeping those teams together? A big difference here between groups and teams is that teams are working together over an extended period of time, whereas a group quickly comes together, looks at something, maybe shares some ideas, and then moves on. When a group is collected, it takes time for them to figure out how they're going to work together and become that high-performing team. We call this process forming, storming, norming, and performing. To say that in slightly longer form, they form together as a team. There's some storming and conflict as they figure out how this is going to work out, who's going to do what, how do they accommodate different work styles and communication styles. Norming, they've figured out what the kind of norms and ways that this team is going to operate, and then ultimately performing, they're now doing things as a team at a level that they could not as individuals, and hopefully having a rewarding and successful and productive experience. Now, the thing to watch out for here in your classroom is that when you reshuffle team members, you are potentially resetting that process. It's because students now need to kind of adjust to who the new members are and figure out and negotiate and navigate those new norms, those new work styles, those new ways of communicating and collaborating. So in a traditional college course, the simple answer here is keep students in the same team for the whole semester or term, with the caveat there that lots of different schools have different lengths of terms or semester. So you've thought about the size of your teams, you've thought about how long you're going to keep them together. How do we actually make those teams? So what you don't want to do is let your students form your own teams. Some people will do that because it just seems quick and easy. Find the people around you, make some teams. I'm busy, I don't have time to work on that. But this is not going to set your students up for success. First off, there is invariably going to be some students that are going to feel left out. You're going to end up with lopsided teams. You're going to end up with dysfunctional teams. You're going to end up with teams that reinforce existing student social hierarchies. So if you can't do anything better than letting them make your own teams, if you're really rushed, the next best thing you can do is randomize those teams. Many learning management systems have team randomizers. There are websites that'll let you randomize a list. You can even pick names out of a hat. But random is a big step up from letting students pick their own teams. Now, the most advanced version, which is going to be recommended for particularly complicated team projects, is that you take the time and energy to carefully balance those teams. You craft teams that are going to be homogeneous and heterogeneous for the elements that you want to control. The research tells us that these are the types of teams that are going to be the most effective, but it's going to require you to figure out how you want to control and cluster and design those teams. So let's think about some of the elements that you might consider for this. You might want to cluster students who are operating in the same time zone if you, say, have an online course with students spread throughout the world. You might want to cluster students who have a similar research interest or are on a similar career path so that they have kind of some shared language there. Those are types of things where it's like it might be good to put students together who have a lot of similarity and overlap. At the same time, it can be really valuable to spread around certain other types of characteristics in your course. So that might be things like experience level or what they got their undergraduate degree in or what major they're currently in, or particular skill levels. I think they're about kind of technical skills that a given project or task might necessitate. And this is a place where you might need to gather some data. So you might need to survey your students and find out, what path are they on? What are their interests? What are their experience levels with different things? Because you may only know the most basic of demographic information off that roster of students. The one thing to watch out for here is be wary about isolating students that are from underrepresented groups in your classroom. While teams do benefit from diversity, individuals who feel isolated can be at threat of feeling like they don't fit in or they are, academically isolated as well as socially isolated in your group. So be careful about that as a characteristic for organizing groups. So I hope this advice will help you be more intentional about how you select groups, how you form those groups, and the types of tasks that you give groups for the next time you're considering doing team activities in your teaching. Thanks for watching. Bye.